Yeah.
Hello.
Don't. Yeah. Just ask everybody to sit down.
Check, check. A very good morning to everyone present here. I request you to kindly take your seats as we begin with the first roundtable conference. Please switch off your mobile phones and kindly settle down. Thank you. Bom dia a todos. Peço-vos a gentileza de ocupar os vossos assentos à medida que começamos com a primeira mesa redonda. Por favor, desliguem os vossos telemóveis. Obrigada. I now request the dignitaries to please come up here and light the lamp.
Good morning, everybody. We have the complete pleasure of inviting you to this International Lusophone Festival, which is organized with the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of Goa, and the Goa University. As you are aware, that is available to you, that there are going to be two roundtable conferences. It gives us great pleasure today to have with us a whole number of dignitaries and practitioners of foreign policy here at the Tango Hall of the Taj Vivanta. We will learn and experience from these people as well as the academicians how foreign policy is made, how foreign policy is practiced vis-a-vis India and the CPLP, as well as the long historical, cultural, and other ties that India has had with the CPLP countries. I will not take much longer because since the schedules are pretty packed, But we have the first roundtable, and this roundtable sort of we shift it as the first roundtable because it's an India's outreach to the global south, exploring convergence with the CPLP. Given that India and CPLP have come yesterday, also we heard about from the minister how India and the CPLP countries are getting together, and the fact that we have and many of them are located in Africa as well as Brazil and Portugal. We have a long historical linkages with them. Having said that, today we are going to have a whole list of speakers here. The first person that I'm going to request to speak is Shri Sivala Naik Mude, followed by Shri Puneet Kural. Then I have His Excellency uh, Jose Maria Ridao Dominguez. Then I have Shri Chinmay Naik, Mr. Luis Senabai from Brazil, Mr. Cristiano dos Santos from Mozambique, Miss Arabella Corugera from Angola. Then I have Mr. Sanjay K. Devan, and then we have a small video from Mr. Constantino Xavier. Then we have Colonel DPK Pillai, and lastly, Mr. Savaikar, the Commissioner of NRI Affairs, if he is here by then. So I won't take much long. So may I request the speakers to limit themselves to 5 minutes, given the paucity of time we have. That is the first session, and I think we can request the first speaker to come here on stage.
Morning to all, Excellencies, my dear colleagues, Sandeep and Puneet, officials from the government of Goa, University of Goa, friends, ladies and gentlemen, I'm extremely pleased to be here on this important cultural show and roundtable. Well, I'm Giant Secretary for Central West Africa Division. I handle about over 25 countries, which includes the 5 countries from Lusophone speaking countries: Angola, Guinea-Bissau, Sao Tome Principe, Equatorial Guinea, Cape Verde. Well, let me start our relations and engagement in Africa. Well, our relations are historical, both culturally, and our trade relations goes back to centuries. But mostly our engagement in the eastern coast of Africa, but western and central was limited. But soon after India's independence, we had helped many countries in gaining their independence. That includes Angola and few others, in embassies in most of the countries, and also in groups. Out of 5 countries which I'm talking about, Angola, of course, we had established soon after independence in 1960s. But in recent time, we have set up in Sao Tome Principe, Equatorial Guinea, and planning to set up in Guinea-Bissau. We already taken approval. Cape Verde as independence, expand several areas. It's not just our investment or trade, cultural and from 2015 or so, particularly after the India-Africa Forum Summit, the third one, which had begun at large scale engagement, actively helping engaging each others. Well, our trade and commerce is growing at a healthy rate, and particularly with Angola, though our 3% of the energy required is huge potential, but we're still working in this field. In other countries, since our embassy is opened recently in Sao Tome Principe, Guinea, is increasing. Our president then has been growing, and our important pillars of the relations is capacity building. In all these countries, we engage them in providing training and offering scholarships in various fields in education. But we also offer training modules in India technical economic cooperation under development partnership, consistent landscape well received in Guinea-Bissau. Of course, we have done electrification projects. Equatorial Guinea as well. Grants in terms of the providing some supplies, rice, pharmaceuticals. Guinea-Bissau, of course, in 2018 we had offered a huge amount of rice. So these are the few each other supporting each other candidates at UN and UN related agencies. So that also cemented our friendship and further. And people to people contact is extremely important. That is growing at a high speed. Well, we also invite cultural troops for various cultural festivals in India. That this year we had invited them in Surajkund Mela. That was the largest festival takes place in India, and the large number of cultural troops have come from various countries, including some of these countries. And with this, I think I can say that our relations are growing, and there is a huge potential to grow further. And most important is people-to-people contact is helping and guiding our relations and our engagement. And cultural contact is also extremely useful. So that is important to note on this. I must say that Sandeep Chakravarti, JSEW, has taken an initiative to bring together all stakeholders in this important event and sharing our experience and knowledge so that and it gives and guidance to the future course of action. With this, thank you very much.
I now request the officiating Vice Chancellor, Professor K.S. Bhatt, to kindly present Shri Sevela Naik Mude with a memento. Peço ao professor Dr. K.S. Bhatt que apresente uma lembrança ao Sr. Sevela Naik Mude. Obrigada.
Now may I request Shri Puneet Kuran to come and please Kundal, sorry, Kundal, to give his.
I know who's speaking next, so I think we're all.
Yes, okay, thank you so much.
Thanks. Excellencies, dear friends, pleasure to be here in this lovely city. I'm back in this city after 24 years, so it's a different feeling that to be back in the same city once again. In this 5 to 7 minutes that I have, what I think is I'll just give you a picture on what is Africa. I don't think any of us, and I can say that with great confidence, most of us don't know Africa. Then I'll speak a little bit about India-Africa relations in general, and then speak a little bit about Mozambique, the country that is represented here and which I deal with. So I think it would come as a surprise to many people that Africa, if you look at a map of the world, you see the continent of Africa and you see Greenland up there. And Greenland and Africa are shown about at the same size. But that's really not. Africa is bigger than US, China, India, and Europe. That's the size of Africa, 54 countries. This actually goes back to the late 1574, 1576, when the first maps of the world were drawn to ease navigation. These are called the Mercator projections, in which the latitudes and longitudes are taken as straight lines, which kind of compresses the south and elongates the north. This also is considered one of the reasons for the justifying the colonial expansion, that look, we are bigger than you, or we are as big as you. But if you look at the size, the relative sizes, you realize that Africa is a continent. It's a huge, huge continent. 5 of the 10 fastest growing economies of the world in 2019 were in Africa. And I quote 2019 because 2020, 2021 were COVID years, so really there are no statistics available. 1950, 10% of the world's population lived in Africa. 2050, it will be 25%. 1 in 4 citizens of planet Earth is going to live in Africa. I just want you to focus on that a bit. Can you imagine the change in geopolitics? Can you imagine the change in geoeconomics, trade, even religion? What impact is the world going to face when you have a fourth of the world living in Africa? Africa is another continent which lies in all the 4 hemispheres, by the way. It's all the 4 quadrants of the earth. If you take the earth and divide it into 4 quadrants, any student of geometry would know that. Africa lies in all 4 quadrants. But in our popular perception, it lies in the global south. I mean, not the global south, south of the equator, but that's not the case. The bulk of Africa lies north of the equator. It is a continent which is on the move, but that move requires money. The statistics and the estimates say that Africa requires about $170 billion of investment every year for it to maintain its infrastructure, to grow, to meet the needs of its population. Electricity demand has to quadruple by 2040, and the shortfall for that is going to be about 100 billion per year. And that's the kind of shortfall that we're talking of if Africa is to go anywhere. Of course, this automatically brings into picture the loans and the assistance programs and the aid programs. All these really do not catch up to the genuine requirements which Africa has. Another fact, let me just tell you, in Africa, can anybody take a guess which is the largest spoken language in Africa? It's not English. It's not French. It's not Portuguese. It's Arabic. I'm just telling you that by saying, let me tell you a bit about Africa before I go to India and Africa. Anyway, I can go on, but let me go to India and Africa. Now, why is Africa, like I said, 54 countries? Why is Africa important to India? Why are we here? India's outreach to the global south, Africa, 54 countries. Why is Africa important to us? Africa, as a practicing diplomat, is important to me, and I will just quote you 5 of the priorities that I think we have if we are to go anywhere as well. When I say we, I mean India, 5th largest economy, plans to be the 3rd largest economy, 1.4 billion people, expected to overtake China next year, population-wise. If we are to go anywhere, we need a whole lot of ecosystem for us to grow and develop in. We have an aspiration to be a world power status. I think all of us in this room know that we want to be a permanent 5 is an outdated concept. We want to update that concept. We want to be a part of the big table. Aspiration for our world power status will depend on our outreach to the world. Africa is 25% of, almost 25, what, 25%? More or less 25% of the total world. 54 countries, 200 UN members. What do you have? It's more than 25%. If we are to go anywhere, we will need to integrate ourselves more into Africa and make Africa integrate more into us. 2, food. Where do you get your food from? We are already running the revolution is kind of peaked. We're looking at Africa has 40% of the world's arable. We buy pigeon, we buy food to our food security. I don't think anybody here can question that food is going to be a challenge. Food was not the challenge till about 1 year back. Suddenly, Russia-Ukraine happens. The world runs short of food, fuel, fertilizer. Food, the biggest thing, imports coming in Ukraine. Third factor I see is a market for India. Now, a 5 trillion, we expect to be a 5 trillion economy, aspiration to be 10 trillion. We will need to trade. The Commerce Ministry gave us a target, us as in the Ministry of External Affairs, to reach 400 billion of exports last year of India. But a need, that's how we trade. And like I said, when you have 25 positively, growth will also require for us metals and minerals, and above all, rare earth elements. Now, rare earth elements don't go by the misnomer. They're not rare. They're found all across the world. In fact, Russia is the biggest producer of rare earth elements. But then you need a beneficial sites. Here, which is full of metals and minerals and rare earth metals and minerals. And here is another country, a bigger country in population today. It has natural resources, it has manpower resources, human resources, education, IT. You can work out mutually beneficial bonds between the continent of Africa and India to the benefit of both sides. And the fifth element that I see is the Indian diaspora. The FDI. There is something about. When you have 3 million people of Indian origin living in Africa, which is 12% of our diaspora, then we need to make sure that the diaspora stays safe. We need to the country under importance. And therefore, Africa is, in my view, the next hotspot for us. The Gulf is kind of African countries of Indian origin who are in positions of power privilege. We have ambassadors, we have judges, we have ministers, we have politicians, members of the parliament of Indian origin. And that diaspora is going to increasingly become important for us. On India, Africa, like I said, within the framework that I have just placed in front of you, we have been billion in South Africa, about 72 billion. We get about close to 7,000 applicants to India for about 80 projects all across Africa under lines of credit loans. We are more about 80 are under implementation and 60 are in the design phase. But let me also say, people to people contact is not about diaspora. People to people contact comes in when there's a need. Take a step back to what happened when COVID broke out. Rich countries started stockpiling vaccines. A country up in the north, okay, Canada, stockpiled vaccines 6 times its population. Heavens, what are you doing? 6 times your population. Why? Because you have the money. And there is a country in Africa. And when I say that, I mean any country you can on your fingertips. In that need, most of the countries in my part of the world I deal with, that East and Southern Africa, started their vaccine program based on the vaccines that were sent from India. And that is something that you need to, again, take into consideration. It's not the numbers here. It's the beginning of the entire process. I had my Foreign Office consultations day before yesterday with Kenya. And the permanent secretary from there told me that he was vaccinated with the India-made vaccines, and several countries across the world where I have traveled have told me that their vaccination program kicked off by the first 50,000, 100,000, 500,000, 1 million vaccines that came from India. Then the program builds up, of course, but the start is the most important, and we are proud to be a part of that start as a part of our Vaccine Maitri. We've been for Africa, India and Africa divided by the Indian Ocean, united by the Indian Ocean, if you like to say. But all the littoral states, if you see, we've had trade links with them since ages. I mean, the Swahili coast that it was called has been a part of our collective psyche since we can never think about it. The Swahili language has so many words of Indian origin. There is a full Siddhi community who just lives in Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, which came from Africa. It's just not Africa and India, it's also India in Africa. It really goes both ways. Whenever there's been a crisis, whether it was a storm in Madagascar or it was the storm Idai in Mozambique, we were the first to reach. We were the first to reach in humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, and we don't hesitate to put back. And that I will link now to our concept of the Indo-Pacific. That we think the Indo-Pacific as the eastern coast of Africa to the western coast of US. It covers that globe, and that's why I take my finger like this. In this part of the world, the Western Indian Ocean is extremely important to us because it is our ocean. It is the Indian Ocean. No other ocean in the world is named after a country, let aside a continent. The Indian Ocean is my ocean. I mean, I'm very clear on that. When the Navy comes into the sea, one of our ex-admirals told us, Sandeep was there, part of our training, he said, we used to say, welcome to our waters, our waters. And he said, initially there was a lot of reaction to this. What is our waters? Over a period of time, 10 years, 15 years, navies across the world have begun to recognize that this is our ocean. It's a part of our responsibility. It's a part of our duty. It's a part of our responsibility. It's a part of our entire concept of peace and well-being that we want to implement through the PM's vision of Sagar, which is the security and growth for all in the region. Therefore, you see that this ocean that we are talking about that unites India and African coast is really an ocean that we want to see grow. We want to utilize it, and we want it to be a zone of peace. I mean, that's the idea. There should not be any conflicts in this part of the world. And really, this ocean is where we want to have our undiluted presence. I'll just take another minute. On Mozambique, I'm very happy to welcome my colleague from the High Commission. I'm happy to say that all presidents from Mozambique have visited India. We were expecting President Nyusi to visit India for the Vibrant Gujarat. Unfortunately, COVID took that opportunity away from us, but we certainly look forward to receiving him whenever we have the next session of the Vibrant Gujarat. We had our Prime Minister visit Maputo in 2016. Like I said, we look at Mozambique as a friendly country. We have invested over $9 billion in Mozambique in oil and gas. The northern part of Mozambique, almost 90% of the mines or coal, other mines belong to India or Indian companies or Indian entities. We are heavily invested into Mozambique. It's one of the most friendly countries we have in Africa. To help them counter the threats that they feel, especially in the Cabo Delgado province, we gifted them 2 fast interceptor boats. These are huge 33-meter ships in 2019. And last year in December, we gifted another 2 boats, which I had the privilege of handing over to the Navy last year. Or was it this year? This year, in May this year. It's a country with which we have fraternal relations. It's a country with we have a huge population from India. And it's a country with whom we want to increase our relations. Bilateral relations, you see, today stand at about $3.9 billion between our 2 countries. We want to enhance the military capabilities of Mozambique. We just in October this year carried out a trilateral naval exercise involving India, Tanzania, Mozambique. Now, this is a part of our outreach. Like I said, our relations are just not political. We want to increase our relations in the military and the armed forces domains. We want to increase our relations in the P2P domain, people to people. We want to increase our bilateral trade. We want to improve our investments. We want our people to go. We want African people to come to India, to study in India, be a part of our milieu, of our socio-economic being. With those words, I think I can really, this is my area. Please push me off the mic quickly. Well, thank you very much for your kind attention. And I look forward to if there are any questions. I'm happy to receive those questions. Thank you very much.
I request Professor K.S. Bhatt to kindly present Shri Puneet R. Kundal with a memento. Peço ao professor Dr. K.S. Bhatt que apresente uma lembrança ao Sr. Puneet Kundal. Obrigada.
Thank you, Mr. Kundal. It was a pleasure because we do a course on Africa, and I think our students are, learning a lot. Having said that, let me now invite His Excellency, Mr. Jose Maria Ridao Dominguez from the Embassy of Spain.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Sandeep and his team for inviting me here, also the Goan government and of course the University of Goa. So I think it's an important event to have this encounter among people working in several fields and different fields in relations with Africa and Portuguese-speaking countries and India, because there are many reasons for this. The first reason is an official reason. I'm very happy and very honored to be here because Spain is part of, as an observer of this organization. So we are very happy and we're very honored to be here. And there is also a personal reason, which is that I have been serving in Angola and Equatorial Guinea. And on personal basis, I've been trying to promote African literature in Spain authors as Jose Eduardo Agalusa from Angola, Pepe Tela, or others, also Mia Couto from Mozambique. So it's a great pleasure, a great honor for me to be here, and I consider it a very important event. We, as Spaniards and as Portuguese and African countries, in this case, we have a common past. And it's very important to speak clearly about the meaning of this idea of common past. Because every time I meet young people and we speak about the common past, the common history, I feel that they understand that we are concealing something. And in fact, we are concealing something. Sometimes when we speak about common past, we are speaking about tragedies, we are speaking about domination, we are speaking about colonialism and colonization. So it's very important for us, at least it's very important for me, for my country, to be very clear on this point. We are not responsible of the past, people of nowadays, but we are responsible about what to do with this past. We can use this past in a, if you permit me, nationalistic way, in the sense of Europe, the nationalism in Europe, and we can say that we were a great superpower in the past, we have right to be recognized as such superpower in the past, or we can approach the past in another way, and the other way is to learn about this past. And in my country, in Spain, we are trying to learn about this past of tragedies, colonialism, and horror sometimes. And if we learn about this past, the first thing we have to say is that we are on equal foot. We are countries, we are peoples on equal foot. We have the same rights, we have the same obligation toward the international community, we have the same obligation to any individual throughout the world. So this is the first lesson for us. We are on an equal foot, we have to speak on an equal foot, and we have to approach to each other knowing that we share this past, but we are responsible about what to do with this past. The second lesson we had from this common past, and not to conceal what this past means, is that we can struggle together for three important issues for everyone in the world, which is freedom. We can share this struggle in India, in Africa, in Europe, anywhere for individual freedom. People have the right to lead their lives in their own way and on their daily decisions. And we as officials, we are obliged and we must be engaged in defending this right to live the life in the way each individual decide without any hindrance, without any problem. So the first idea, the first lesson of the past is we have the possibility of struggling together toward freedom. We have also the possibility of showing this struggle for equality. If you look at the present situation of the world, sometimes we feel that at the end we are trying to say that we are not equal, that there are people who have more rights to some values, to some rules, to some things which are common. So we have to insist, because of our past, in the idea that we are equal also, and we have this struggle in common towards equality. And finally, we can fight together also toward in favor of progress. Progress is possible. We realize that technologies are the equal idea as progress. It depends on how is a value these technologies to reach progress for everyone and to create and to accept rules to promote progress for everyone. So these ideas are about the past. We share a past, but we have to recognize which is our approach to this past. The second idea of considering important this event is that Spain and Portugal, as a countries related to this idea of language as one of the central values to have this kind of approach to other parts of the world. Spain and Portugal have been complementary, have lead a complementary policy. And we have a very important example, not only the Portuguese-speaking community or Spanish-speaking community, the Latin America community, but also in Europe. In Europe, Spain and Portugal entered the Union at the same time, and they developed many initiatives together. The oldest initiative is an initiative about funds to promote cohesion among the countries, and the Spanish government and the Portuguese government reaches the possibility of having this fund from the European Union, which were very, very important for our development and to attain the at least of the European Union. In this, we are speaking about three decades away, and we were able to reach the same level as the average in Europe. And recently, with the crisis, energetic crisis because of the war of Ukraine in Europe, Spain and Portugal put a solution in order to get the prices of energy lower than before. And they succeeded also in the European Union. So if we look at these processes in a general view, we see that complementarity is important. And even if, as Spaniards, we are approaching Latin America, and as Portuguese, they are approaching Africa, Latin America, and India, complementarity with these two countries and with these areas are important. This idea of complementarity is because of we read the past in another way, not as an idea to be proud of our past, but an idea to learn about our past and lead this past to complementarity. And after this idea of complementarity, we have to talk about stability. It's one of the most important things in the present world. If we compare the present situation with the Cold War, we realize that there are many differences, of course, but there is one difference which is the most important in my personal feeling, and I spoke before this meeting. During the Cold War, we had tough enemies. There were two countries who were the toughest enemies in the world, but they recognized to each other. Even saying you are my enemy, you recognize US or the Soviet Union as enemies. Recognition of the enemy is very important to find a solution. This is the kind of problem the terrorism rise. You can recognize the enemy because the enemy is acting in a way in which you can't speak with them or doing things with them. So we realized that this issue of recognition is very important. And during the Cold War, the world's enemies, they recognized to each other. But there was another point which was more important even than the recognition, which is language. When the US deployed a missile in a place in the world, the Soviet Union recognized the meaning of this movement, and the same the other way around. If the Soviet Union said or moved a missile or something, the US recognized immediately what was the meaning of this movement. So there was a language, and in this moment, we don't have a language. movements of the players, international players, who are not recognized in all the cases, are very dangerous because we have to imagine what is the message they want to convey to us and the risks if we have a past and we read the past as proposing to read it. If we have complementarity, and finally we are looking for stability, we have to struggle together for freedom, equality, progress, but also to have a language in which we can understand the movement of each player in the world. That's why I think it's so important that India being the Portuguese-speaking countries, and it will be a great pleasure, a great honor, and a great movement, political and diplomatic movement, if India becomes also part of the Latin American community established in the Secretariat in Madrid. Convey to you, and I would like to finalize a personal reflection. I heard about this concept of global South. I think it's a central concept in the Indian foreign policy. But happily or unhappily, I have to look at this concept from outside. And my fear is that if you insist in a particular way, in this concept of global South, you risk to create the global North. And the most important thing for stability is if you have this global South created, is a global South about values, about ideas, about struggles that we can share. So the global South exists, because if not, we are well in University of Goa. Thank you.
I request Professor Bhatt to kindly present His Excellency Mr. José Maria Ridao Mendes the memento. Peço ao professor Dr. Bhatt que apresente uma lembrança ao Sr. Dr. José Maria Ridao Mendes. Obrigada.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I mean, colonialism, the pre-industrial revolution colonialism, of course, in Latin America and in India and Africa, created, schisms, but linkages were also established. And, yesterday we also heard about fruits and vegetables, etc., that came. So that is the thing. And of course, football. I mean, everybody in India, and especially the state of Goa, is crazy about football. So the next speaker that I would like to invite is Shri Chinmay Naik. He is the DDG Culture of the ICCR.
Good morning to all, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. ICCR is very happy to be part of this first of its kind International Lusophone Festival. We saw a glimpse of that yesterday evening, and today I'll be very brief. As the topic suggests, India's outreach to the global south and specifically to the Lusophone countries. ICCR has already been doing its bit on that front. Started in 1950, we have evolved a number of programs over the years. In short, our job is basically cultural diplomacy, and under that rubric, we have a number of programs which we have been conducting. I'll just name a few, given the shortage of time, but just try to cover the main points. The most important program we have is the scholarship program, and around 3,000 scholarships are offered every year. 908 slots are available under the Africa Scholarship Scheme. I think some of the students from the audience would be part of those scholars. We're happy about that. As far as Lusophone countries are concerned, by head count, we have about 45 slots per year, a majority of which goes to Angola. Apart from the Africa Scholarship Scheme, we also have other schemes for culture, art, and music. which, by the way, both these schemes are fully funded. That means we provide to and fro air tickets, full stay in India, stipend, tuition fees, etc. So it's a very popular program. I think there's a lot of scope in under these schemes. The Africa Scholarship Scheme, by the way, is fully subscribed. It's actually oversubscribed every year. And if the Ministry of External Affairs supports us, we could actually increase the seats in the coming years. Whereas there are some vacant slots available still for Brazil and Portugal under the General Scholarship Scheme, now known as the Atal Bihari Vajpayee General Scholarship Scheme. And these students, they study all over India in central and state universities, around 314 of them. Undergraduate and in technical and engineering streams. So I think we are contributing our bit in terms of capacity building, because we understand they're getting the best of education here, and when they go back, I'm sure they're contributing in their own way to the technical requirements of that country. In addition to that, we also have a visitors program. We have had a number of important visitors over the years. ICCR invites through our embassies and missions important dignitaries of your countries. They could be political leaders, they could be mayors, they could be rising business stars, vice chancellors, academics. So we have these programs, distinguished visitors program, academic visitors program. As per my records, we already have lined up 2 important visits from Portugal this year. One of them happens to be the mayor of Porto. And also we have some other dignitaries coming up from the universities. So we offer them 7 to 10 days familiarization visit, again fully funded. We take them to the various universities or institutions of their choice. We organize meetings with dignitaries. We take them to think tanks. We of course do some sightseeing. We take them to one state. So to give them in a short perspective an idea about India, so that they go back with the latest about what India is. Many of the perceptions about India come from probably a lack of reading the local media. So the idea is that they see for first hand what it is all really about, and the feedback we get from many of these people who have gone back is they have actually opened up their eyes, and they see India in a much better perspective. In the same vein, as part of the 75th anniversary of Indian independence, we had organized what is known as the Gen Next Democracy Program. So under this program, we had called batches of young parliamentarians and political leaders from 75 countries whom we identified as democratic countries. Again, we had organized these events. We had taken them to the Parliament of India. We had organized a visit to the state, think tanks, etc., and given them a flavor of India. And in my record, again, we have one coming up with Cape Verde, and also from Brazil. So we would be again hoping to continue these kind of programs, which can offer this facility. But of course, the objective is that we catch them young. These dignitaries and these rising potential personalities will have say in their system in the long run, and I hope they will benefit from their visits to India. In addition to that, ICCR also facilitates cultural delegations, which are our main job in terms of performing delegations, in terms of exhibitions, both outgoing and one folk art group to Brazil, and there was one Bollywood group to Angola. Similarly, you saw yesterday we had the incoming delegations from the 9 various countries. So we can also work with embassies. For your knowledge, we have been working with a lot of embassies, including with Spain. We had very good performances. I hope the ambassador will agree in the last few months. The terms and conditions are very simple. We work with the embassy. Once they reach India, we take care of full hospitality. We try to arrange performances in various cities of India. We organize events jointly with the embassy. We could take them to a university. We arrange the publicity. So it's a very good event facility in my view to promote the cultural delegations from abroad. So if you have any ideas, please do let us know. And of late, we have been MEA has been diverting a lot of requests to ICCR, and we have been exhibitions with the rest of the Indian art exhibits, and same way we can do that for exhibitions coming abroad. I would like to touch upon some other aspects which we do. We have cultural centers abroad, 37 of them, which are doing their own bit, because not every time you can send people abroad. We have teachers posted in those centers who teach in yoga, Indian studies, Hindi, Sanskrit, etc. And the local students can learn a lot in a much more structured and in your a year or two. Teachers of our own, we work in universities and facilitate their positioning abroad. They could be teaching Hindi, they could be teaching yoga, Indian studies again, Sanskrit also. Likewise, we also offer fellowships. So if you have some Indophiles in your countries who have done a certain level of studies on some subject, we can offer them for a year or so, tie them up with a local institution, have a mentor. We pay stipends, and at the end of the project, they are supposed to submit a thesis or a report, which will, of course, be in the field of Indian culture, art, and music. We also organize conferences and seminars like this current one. There are many players in the field, but ICCR is also one of them. So very happy the embassies are linked to Indian culture. Otherwise, there are different topics for different agencies for different topics. In addition, we also do books and publications. If there are some things which have a cultural underpinning. For example, we are working with our embassy in Portugal to come out with a Portuguese Hindi dictionary. So that is being funded by us, courtesy the Lisbon University. And similarly, we have done similar dictionary. Let us know. We have very liberal terms and conditions. And of course, as my predecessor said, funding is the most important issue. And maybe I'm taking a risk, but I'm saying that we are kind of well endowed. So, in addition, let me just finish by saying that we also, ICCR does not claim to be the only agency dealing with cultural diplomacy of soft power in India. As it's structured, we have other players also. For example, the Ministry of Culture deals exclusively with the festivals of India abroad. But we work with them as a sister agency. If there is any facilitation required with those institutions or ministries, do let us know. Similarly, with the Ministry of Tourism, they also have their own domain. They would have heard about the Incredible India campaign. So we all work together in tandem abroad and in India. Food festivals also, while we don't deal with it, but we work with the Ministry of Tourism to work on those aspects. So those are some of the areas which ICCR deals with. It's a very small organization. Given the work we have, our budget is actually disproportionate, but we do our best. Maybe sometimes there's a lack of awareness or knowledge, but it's good that I came here and I was probably able to throw some light. Hopefully some hints can be taken up, and we will be very happy to work in the Lusophone endeavor, which the Ministry of External Affairs has taken for the first time. With that, I'd like to end. I think more than exceed my time. I had a stopwatch with me. Thank you very much.
I request Professor Bhatt to kindly present Shri Chinmay Naik with a memento. Peço ao professor Dr. Bhatt que apresente uma lembrança ao Sr. Chinmay Naik. Obrigada.
Thank you, Mr. Naik. You would be happy to know we have a student from Cabo Verde here. So he's I don't know where he is right now, but he's there. And we have till last year we had 4 students from Africa. So we are well endowed with students from Africa. Yes. Now let me request Mr. Luis Felipe Sarabia, the Council, the Consulate of Brazil in Mumbai, to say a few words. Thank you.
Good morning. It's an honor to join this prestigious roundtable within the International Festival, half of the Consulate General of Brazil in Mumbai. First of all, I'd like to congratulate and thank the Ministry of External Affairs of India, ICCR, the government of Goa, and Goa University for organizing this event, as well as all the ambassadors and dignitaries here present. The historical ties between Brazil and India find in Goa their most prominent elements. From the 16th to the 19th century, Brazil with Salvador da Bahia and the later Rio de Janeiro and Goa were capitals of the Portuguese Empire. As the ships from Lisbon to Goa had somewhere to stop for maintenance or due to weather conditions, the vessels would inevitably make a pause in Salvador or in other Brazilian ports. In this context, both the colonies naturally started to develop their own trade flow, which Portugal could not avoid due to their geographical distances. As meticulously described by Professor Filomena Sequeira Anthony in her precious book, The Goa-Bahia Intercolonial Relations from 1675 to 1825, published in both Brazil, the pivotal roles one played to the other was such that attempts were made in order to restrain that flow, as it was thought it could jeopardize the power of the crown over the colonies. Moreover, the discovery of the economic potential of Brazil, along with the decrease in profit in the Asian spice trade, started to shift the focus towards the South American coast. That helped, for instance, to pave the way for the legal recognition of trade flow between Brazil and Goa in 1775 regarding tobacco, which Brazil had already been selling to Goa for the previous 200 years. As part of the Portuguese Empire, the movement of people between the two countries also helped to strengthen their ties. Senior officials of the Portuguese crown built up their career serving Brazil and Goa as government administrators, bureaucrats, and members of the armed forces, not to mention bishops and priests, as the Catholic faith was also part of the common identity. For instance, Dom Pedro Sardinha had been serving Goa for a moderate policy to populate the colonies with people sent by the empire, led some Brazilians to come to Goa and vice versa. As a matter of fact, the relations between Brazil and Goa under the Portuguese Empire changed our landscapes. To give some examples, the widespread coconut trees, as embedded as they are into the Brazilian beaches, were brought from Goa, as were mangoes, ginger, and several spices. To date, Goa still exports cashew nuts, which first came from Brazil. India is the fourth largest producer of natural rubber in the whole world, which has a special relevance for the economy of the state of Kerala. Rubber was brought to India from the Brazilian Amazon rainforest. The independence of Brazil in 1822, however, changed the course of the relationship between the new country and Goa, as they were not part of the same empire anymore. Moving forward up to the 20th century, our relationship must be understood in the light of the great bonds between Brazil and India. In fact, Brazil was the first Latin American country to establish diplomatic relations with the independent India in 1948. Countries share many similarities as large nations, regionally relevant, endowed with natural riches, diversity, and human-generated wealth. Brazil and India have a solid tradition of cooperation, not only bilaterally, but also in multilateral bodies. From 1955 to 1974, with the rupture of diplomatic relations between India and Portugal, Brazil played a key role, formally representing the interests of Portugal in India. In that period, our embassy in Delhi would even issue passports to Portuguese citizens in India. More recently, starting the 1990s, the cultural relations between Brazil and India had an impulse with policies aiming at reinforcing the Indian heritage, particularly in Goa. In the meantime, in 1996, the Community of Portuguese-Speaking Countries, CPLP, was being founded, of which India is now an associate observer since last year. As India is a strategic partner for Brazil under any Brazilian government, fostering the cultural relations between Brazil and India using our historical bonds with Goa is a top priority for the Brazilian missions in India, our embassy in New Delhi, and our consulate general in Mumbai. I am delighted to recall that under a memorandum of understanding signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Brazil and Goa University, December 2020, Ms. Marcele Feigol Gil, here present, a Brazilian professor, is working here since last June as a visiting lecturer of Portuguese language and Brazilian studies at Goa University. Special thanks go to the Vice Chancellor, Professor Harilau Bhaskara Menon, here represented by Professor Bhatt, for his support to our lectureship, and Professor Aparajita Gongo Pandeyai, an enthusiast of Brazil, for her long collaboration, including for that memorandum of understanding, and also for the kind invitation who brought me here today. Brazil already had a lecturer at Goa University from 1995 to 2008. With the arrival of Professor Marcele Feigol Gil a few months ago, Brazil is again proud to have in Goa one of the 39 lectures maintained all over the world by Guimarães Rosa Institute, the body of the Brazilian Foreign Service in charge of promoting Brazilian culture and Portuguese language abroad, as well as cooperation among universities. Guimarães Rosa Institute, with this designation, was institutionally formed a few months ago, but it's actually the new designation of the Cultural and Educational Department created more than 60 years back of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Brazil, with now more tools to respond to the challenges and opportunities of the contemporary times. In Goa, Professor Marcele Feigol Gil is not only teaching Brazilian literature in Portuguese language, but also promoting Brazilian programs and scholarships to encourage Indian students to pursue graduate and postgraduate courses at Brazilian universities. One of our priorities is to work in partnership with Camões Institute and other Portuguese institutions, not only here in Goa, but also all over the world, as spreading our beautiful language is one of our countless goals shared between Brazil and Portugal. A recent study sponsored by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Brazil showed that Portuguese is currently the 6th most used language on the internet, which encourages us to move ahead, both the language of Machado de Assis, Essa de Queiroz, and Mia Couto. Bearing all that in mind, the Consulate General of Brazil in Mumbai, in partnership with Goa University, has been promoting activities in order to foster our cultural ties with online and offline seminars and other events. In November last year, I had the joy of coming here for an event focused on promoting Portuguese language through capoeira, the Brazilian martial art that involves music and dancing. Capoeira may be one of the greatest examples of the resilience of the Brazilian people, as it stems from our creativity. People under the tragedy of slavery had to pretend they were just having fun with music and dance when they were actually training to fight. Thus, resilience is the word that spearheads the role played by capoeira, a unique martial art in the history of Brazil. Within the International Lusophone Festival of Goa, the Brazilian culture is being highly represented in the fields of music, dance, capoeira, and gastronomy, as well as an exhibition of Brazilian landscape design, honoring our shared Lusophone history. We are confident enough that the public will enjoy the diverse Brazilian participation at the festival. Brazil and India have so much in common, with Goa being our precious link through which our cultural relations will continue to be fostered. Thank you very much.
I request Professor Bhatt to kindly present Mr. Luís Felipe Zarnobai with a memento. Peço ao professor Dr. Bhatt que apresente uma lembrança ao Sr. Luís Felipe Zarnobai. Obrigada.
Thank you, Mr. Sandabai. We have a very, at least my school of international area studies is a very close link with Brazil because one of the thrust areas of our school is Brazil. So we have had for years, actually decades, a good link with the Brazilian embassy. Having said that, the next speaker that I would request to come on the stage is Mr. Cristiano dos Santos. He is the Minister Counselor from Mozambique. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning to all of you. Let me begin by thanking the organizers of this conference, of this International Lusophone Festival here in Goa. My first time in Goa. I only heard about Goa from long times, and when we studied history in Mozambique, we knew that the Portuguese Empire extended to Goa, Damau, and Dio. And these things stayed in my head since those times, and now I'm here in Goa to be present in this conference. So it's a great pleasure to be in this conference, Lusophone conference. And today we have the pleasure of hearing some Portuguese here. Very good. I don't know where the young lady was yesterday because we didn't hear any Portuguese in the opening, but today at least we have some Portuguese. Is very good. Thank you very much. I will try to talk a little bit on the perspective of the African Lusophone countries, as other speakers have also talked in the different perspectives, probably more global perspectives. Well, I will not dwell on the historical linkages that the Lusophone world has with India. I think this has been also talked at length. We all have the common history of visits from Mr. Vasco da Gama. Vasco da Gama came to Mozambique first, and then he continued his journey in discovering the sea route to India. And he reached India, he reached Goa. And that's part of our history. In a more recent history, we also have an important feature that I'd like to recall here. India has had very strong links with Africa from the times of Mahatma Gandhi in South Africa, where I think he began his political career there in South Africa. And always India from those times have supported Africa in its liberation, the liberation struggles. India was a precursor of the non-aligned movement in the G77, and those movements also supported Africa in the liberation struggle. We have the support of India in the struggles of Ghana, Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, Angola, Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau, and other countries. So this is a very important connection also between India and Africa and the Lusophone world as well. Now, talking about the Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa, we have 6 African Portuguese-speaking countries. They are called PALOPs. It is the abbreviation in Portuguese for Portuguese African-speaking countries. And those are Angola, Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau, Equatorial Guinea, Mozambique, and São Tomé and Príncipe. They have all of them have Portuguese as the official language. And all of them were also Portuguese colonies except Equatorial Guinea. Well, but they are very diverse countries. They are not very homogeneous in terms of diversity, in terms of ethnic, cultural, social, and economic terms. We have Equatorial Guinea, which is one of the richest countries in Africa in per capita terms. And then we have Angola as the largest country, both in terms of area and population. We have Mozambique with a population of over 30 million now, and the longest coastline of about 2,700 kilometers in the Indian Ocean. We have Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau, São Tomé and Príncipe with smaller populations, around 2 millions or less. And then the whole group is scattered from Southern Africa to Western Africa. These Portuguese-speaking countries, together with Portugal and Brazil, they have taken this group as an entity institutionalized in the community of the Portuguese-speaking countries, which was founded in 1996. This is an international organization of Lusophone nations. Like I said, they are across 4 continents, including Portugal and Brazil, in Europe and Latin America. There are 9 full member states and 32 states which have the status of associate observers, and we have some of them here, including Spain and India, that joined the organization recently. Well, the CPLP combined population is about 300 million. And this doesn't include the population in the diaspora, estimated about 10 million. So this is just to show you the importance of this group as a linguistic group and as a group of countries, as an organization. And Portuguese is also used in several other organizations, from Mercosur, the Organization of Ibero-American States, the African Union, the Economic Community of the Western African States, where we have Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau, and São Tomé and Príncipe, and in the Southern African Development Community, where Mozambique and Angola are, and of course in the European Union as well. Now, this relationship with India and Africa can be also harnessed through different ways. We think that the fact that India has joined CPLP can create an opportunity for a new strategic partnership with the Lusophones. Because now we can see in Africa, particularly in the Lusophone Africa, that many countries are embarking on economic reforms, and there is an emergence of a middle class, and also the new launching of the African Continental Free Trade Area will bring about development and will create a good and ample space for investors to work with these African countries. One of the initiatives that has been launched in the Lusophone countries is the Lusophone Compact, which is an initiative championed by the African Development Bank to accelerate inclusive, sustainable, and diversified private sector growth in Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa. This is a tool that can also be leveraged to increase investment and partnership in Africa, and particularly in the Lusophone countries, not only amongst the Lusophone countries, but with other partners, including India in this case. Now, let me borrow some words which were pronounced by Mr. Mateus Magala when he was vice president of the African Development Bank. He is now the Minister of Transport and Communication in Mozambique. He said, I quote, Angola and Equatorial Guinea have both embarked on ambitious programs to diversify their economies away from natural resources. Mozambique, which is beginning to receive massive investments related to natural gas sector, like it was mentioned, India is already investing in Mozambique and other countries. Mozambique also recognized the need to grow sectors like agribusiness and industry. Cape Verde already has a middle class country, is seeking to diversify its economy too, attracting new types of tourists while also growing its fishing and agribusiness sectors. São Tomé e Príncipe and Guinea-Bissau, members of the Alliance of Small Island States, seek sustainable investments that both promote growth and deal with their exposure to climate change, including through the so-called blue economy. End of quote. So this is to say that there is a lot of enormous investment opportunities in this part of the world that can be explored. And this is one of the reasons and objective of this conference, to use this convergence to the benefit of our countries and peoples. Now, on the training and the technical assistance, as it was mentioned here, there's a lot has been done, and we thank ICCR for their continuous support and the government of India. A lot of Mozambican students have been benefiting from this assistance, but I think there's still room for explore a little bit more the Goa connection, if I can say so. I think Goa is an ideal host for the Portuguese-speaking students and officials who visit India for various ICCR and ITEC programs. It would certainly be more appealing for them, for the Lusophone people coming to this area, to have training in Goa, either in Portuguese, as it was mentioned here, or in English, in a more familiar context than in other different contexts here in India. Well, we think this is some ideas that could also serve as food for thought as we try to find convergence for the benefit of the partnerships between India and Africa and the Lusophone world in particular, just to try to take this partnership to potential higher levels that can be achieved. The language bonds and historical heritage that we all know unites the Lusophone countries and India, and this should and can be leveraged to great economic cooperation, leading to the development and economic growth of both sides for the benefit of the present and future generations. And with these words, I will thank you very much for your attention.
I request Professor Bhatt to kindly present Mr. Cristiano dos Santos with a memento. Peço ao professor Dr. Bhatt a apresente uma lembrança ao Sr. Cristiano dos Santos. Obrigada.
Thank you so much, Minister dos Santos. The last speaker who has promised to speak only for a minute is Dr. Sanjay K. Devan. He is the Honorary Consul of Cabo Verde. Please, sir.
Hello, distinguished guests. Like everyone else, I want to take this opportunity to thank Ministry of External Affairs and Government of Goa and University of Goa giving us this opportunity to be here. And it has been a very, very fine experience, and there has been a big takeaway for at least me. We really felt we were a very cohesive group of people with a lot of mutual respect and admiration. And as Professor Sahiba just said that last, and I'm supposed to speak the least, I'll just take this opportunity to tell you that I have a question, probably a thought in my mind, and that thought goes to the reference of what the Honorable CM of Goa said yesterday, that the Portuguese people came to India and they brought cashew. So what simmers in my mind is I'm not getting into why they came and what they did and how they came, but they came with a vision. And the vision was that we have to provide a source of living, a meaningful engagement, and prospect for growth. So, should we be following that path of sharing a knowledge and working in a way that the future becomes very simple and compatible for the people in the countries that we are trying to associate with? Thank you very much, and I hope students will have time to answer some questions at my cost. Thank you.
I request Professor Bhatt to kindly present Dr. Sanjay K. Diwan with a memento. Peço ao professor Dr. Bhatt que apresente uma lembrança ao Sr. Dr. Sanjay K. Diwan. Obrigada.
My apologies to Colonel Pillai. We will be breaking for tea because some people need to, have their flights to catch. So we'll make a break for tea, and we'll keep the tea very short for 10 minutes, and then we'll all get back. I hope that's all right with everybody. Yeah, thank you.
Can I test this? Can I test?
importance of that legacy, historical heritage through the importance of Goa. In 2014, Goa hosted the Lusophonia Sporting Games, again a momentous step in that relationship. In the same year, Goa again hosted a very important initiative on India and the Lusophone markets, on the economic ties and relations, a conference that was opened up by the late Chief Minister of Goa, Manohar Parrikar. And most recently, in 2021, we saw something that many of us have called for a long time, which is India joining formally as an associate observer the CPLP, the Community of Portuguese-Speaking Countries, whose headquarters are in Lisbon, but which has states as members in 4 different continents. So we've come a long way, and I think this Lusophone week now in Goa over the next few days, and this roundtable in particular, are an excellent opportunity to think ahead of how to flesh out this relationship, how to not only announce that India is reconnecting with the Portuguese-speaking world. We are talking
to find a route and continue that. And route here, and you can